Welcome back to NAB Show 2018. I'm here with Stephen Calcote of Butcherbird Studios for another Wowza Studio Sessions, where we're going to talk about how to fight the tyranny of posts and go live. This was a very hot topic that Stephen brought to the table that he really wanted to talk about. Stephen is an award-winning filmmaker and director who has worked on projects for Disney, Sony Pictures, BBC America. He has a video series in the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, all sorts of great things. He comes from a narrative, documentary, and commercial filmmaking background, but he has recently fell in love with live production. And a lot of it has to do with a reason you may not think about when thinking about going live, and that is the cost involved and the cost savings that you get with live production over spending a lot of time in post-production. But first, let's get a little background on Butcherbird Studios and some of the cool projects they've been working on recently.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob. It's
Welcome.
Really fantastic to be here and share some of this learning. Because you're right, it was unexpected that live would be so exciting as a traditional narrative filmmaker, and we'll get back to that. But Butcherbird Studios is really fundamentally a group of storytellers. We are absolutely dedicated to telling a story the best way possible with the best technology possible. So at any given day of the week, you may see us throw down a live production followed by a traditional 3-camera narrative shoot, followed by some crazy future-looking VR project, which we've got a couple of working right now.
Awesome.
And in each of those cases, we try to make sure that the technology being used is not just a great fit, but probably the best fit for that story.
Yeah. And so we both have been early adopters of the Wowza Clearcaster, and I know we first used it on New Year's Eve in Times Square, and you first used it on a concert, right?
So we first used it for a big public-facing client for QuickBooks just in February, actually.
Okay.
Up in Mountain View. A really cool story where, and I love how current this is, they had actually discovered an artist, Willa, from Linda Perry's company, We Are Here, and she was the voice of their new national broadcast campaign.
Got it.
So she was the one doing the Daft Punk cover. And then it blew up because everyone was Shazamming those commercials. And then they said, well, why don't we host a concert with Willa and live stream that?
Yeah.
So that's where I said to Anthony, hey, we're going to take that up there to Mountain View and let's use the Wowza Clearcaster to do this. And to our delight, it did 1 million views.
Wow, yeah.
So
that's a huge view count for.
Now I'll give you a well-known secret, but a general secret that Willa is only 13.
Wow.
And she is an amazing performer, and you're seeing some footage here where we actually did it in the Intuit headquarters building. And we did a bespoke concert, so it was all of the Intuit employees, the QuickBooks folks there watching it, and then this just went out to the world as well. So it's that wonderful thing that live can be, where it's both intimate as a one-on-one performance and worldwide.
Yeah. Now, how is this different from how you would approach more of a concert doc, if you will, or something where you would take a lot more time, have a lot more resources and stuff at your disposal? How does that work out with the final product, and why is it different when you go live in that regard?
That's a fantastic question, and I think there's something unexpected a lot of clients aren't really aware of, because as clients are so busy and focused on their product, they're very much thinking about, how do we communicate this? What they may not be thinking about as much is, how does the audience receive this? And here's the wonderful thing about live. Audiences have been trained since the dawn of their watching whatever entertainment live, whether it's Saturday Night Live or live sports. There is a rough around the edges quality for live that is wonderful. And that is the payoff, or that is the trade-off, rather, you get for the payoff of seeing the event live. So, to answer your question directly,
people are attracted to that look,
anything could happen.
that rawness to it.
Anything could happen, right? So with Willa, we covered that as a 2-camera C300 Mark II, beautiful lenses, etc. But we did it as 2 cameras,
right?
And we switched 2 angles, and we had 1 camera operated and 1 camera on a wide. If I were to do Willa as a concert film, which would be great to do, by the way, because she's an amazing performer, I would probably have a minimum of 12 cameras.
Yeah.
And I would probably want a month or 2 in post.
Absolutely.
Right? But interestingly, that was the absolute wrong solution for the QuickBooks concert, because the payoff there was join us for a one-on-one concert.
Yeah.
And the more
Yeah.
cameras I would have tried to add into that, the less it would have felt like a one-on-one intimate experience that I was sort of peeking into.
We've seen that a lot in music, especially. The fans really want a personal relation to the talent, right? They really vibe on those intimate moments, and we've done a lot of projects with Warner Music Group, similar to what you did with Willa, of bringing together the direct connection between the artist and their fans, and having it be something backstage with one nice camera or two nice cameras, and they're going to talk a little bit before they go on that evening, or doing a little small set inside of Warner headquarters, just to be able to push out with Songkick Live or one of those performances is really a special moment, because you get an opportunity that they normally don't have to talk to their fans. That's very different than like just tweeting back on Twitter or something like that.
Absolutely.
And you have actually a weekly live show that you do where you talk back to other people in the industry and fans of Butcherbird Studios, and
Right.
you bring in different guests and celebrities and
Absolutely.
other people in the industry.
And we just hit 35 episodes over less than a year, and these are 45 minutes to an hour episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So any other how many do we push out solution would pale behind being live.
Right.
And we talked about this before we went on air today, because we have so many opportunities to meet great people in the industry,
Yeah.
we decided to convert that into anytime we meet somebody interesting, we say, and we end up with, can you come on our show?
Exactly.
Can you come on our show and share with us how you did this? And we've actually started to expand into finding creators just doing interesting things. Andrew Finch did an amazing film called Others Will Follow about humanity's first mission to Mars. We saw that as a Vimeo pick and said, okay, let's reach out to Andrew. It turned out he was 2 miles away from us.
That's
and we had him
incredible,
on as a
yeah.
director who was an all-in-one. Quite the
Sure, that happens a lot in Glendale.
yeah, in the Glendale Burbank area, you
Yeah.
have creators you would have never thought about. All the way on the other spectrum, though, we worked with the amazing improv comedian musician Reggie Watts on a project. That was a big project, and we ended it with, Reggie, we would love to feature you on our little show that takes a moment and deep dives with creators. To our surprise, he said, I would love to. And we'll talk about this, I know, in a moment, but then he came and we spent another hour with him, and then he's like, I want to do something with you guys.
Yeah.
So it's this wonderful, virtuous ecosystem.
And that led to you developing with Reggie a new improvised sitcom that you're going to do
Absolutely.
live,
Yeah, so he
which
actually,
is a fascinating concept.
which is so very current.
Right.
This discussion would have been bonkers 10 years ago. It would have been a science fiction discussion.
Right.
The etymology of that is Reggie did an event for Netflix, a special called Spatial. He had his own sitcom inside of that he improv'd. So that was a pre-recorded event called Crow's Nest. And he was looking for a place to actually turn that into a live improv sitcom experience. And he'd kind of play tested us not realizing it, on both a traditional and a live show. And he was like, I love how you guys work. I want to bring my live show to you. Can you host it at your stage? And we'll pick an evening. We now have May 26th as the evening. May 24th is the evening. And we're going to go live with him and two of his great co-creators. And that's going to be a live multi-camera sitcom improv experience, which I suspect is one
Live
of the first
multi-camera sitcom experience.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the first at that level done truly live and deployed online. Everybody's experimenting, and there are a lot of things like that. But I think what makes this special is, by all rights, Reggie could do this on a network.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But he wants the complete creative freedom of anything can happen. So it made a lot of sense for him to go out social on it. So it's
it does.
again, it's a creature, a storytelling unit that I think is very current and wouldn't have existed even 2 years ago.
Yeah, so let's get back to the numbers a little bit of, you know, how we deal with educating our clients on the differences between going live and going to post. I was just in a client negotiation the other day where the client wanted two different quotes, right? Going live or going to tape and then cutting in post. And they couldn't wrap their heads around why it costs so much more for us to take it in post. And, we're talking hundreds of hours of editing and color and conform and
Absolutely. If you're lucky.
proxy workflow online back to online, and it's definitely a lot different when you're able to do that line cut and produce a finished product and walk away from it that day being really proud.
Right. And I think there are a couple of things that benefit, and I'll go on record as saying, again, as a narrative filmmaker who loves doing projects for people from HP to Intel to Boeing to, like, you name it. These are big, beautiful multi-camera projects, right?
Right.
I love that. But I will tell you, let me go on record as saying, there are some cases, no matter how big you are, where live is the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we make a lot of bread and butter on post, so I'm probably going to be killed by my partners when I come back for saying this, but there are a lot of projects that clients should not post.
Sure.
Because, take this conversation. Let's say that you were a Fortune 500 interviewer, you were a chief marketing officer, and I'm one of your customers.
Yeah,
and we want to share a product, right? Like that's a not an unusual example.
Yes, absolutely.
If I were to then take 100 hours to edit this interview and color correct it to an inch of its life and take every and ah out,
right?
What's that going to get you really? 5% more experience?
Yes.
Whereas if you leave it live, the audience is more forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, wow, you were brave enough to do this live.
Yeah.
Shared your current thinking. It's available right now, so I know that there is nothing more current from you. Like, it is not possible for you to be more current on what you're saying than this live show. So here's the great news. The audience is going to help you. They're going to say thank you, and they're not going to expect that 12-camera concert film out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's this other element of being relevant in the moment. A lot of the work that we do at LiveX and some of the stuff that you've done is very event focused and trending and sticky and social. And so going live on Facebook obviously is a really good tool for that.
Absolutely.
I know you did one of the coolest things I've seen live is a project you worked on with Airbnb in Roswell, New Mexico.
Yeah, it's truly of the time. Like,
right.
There would have been no way to do this even 3 years ago. So
Sure.
This is last summer, and there's one more part of this equation that I think is really important. With the biggest clients, you almost always have an agency involved. And so we do a lot of collaboration with an amazing producer named Kat Urban from TBWA Chiat Day, Los Angeles. You have to have somebody in the chain who is willing to champion new media, who is willing to champion a completely different approach. And in the case of this one, what we're watching is actually from 2016. This is the National Parks Project, which Kat unleashed with Airbnb the summer before. And this was an example of live, slow TV, coast to coast, being in national parks.
Wow.
So 12 hours in some of the most beautiful places on the planet. And to everyone's surprise, those did collectively well more than 1 million views. And they were 4-hour-long shows in national parks. So that inspired Airbnb, and they said, okay, what if we got more narrative with it, but live? So they worked with National Geographic. Kat's team put together this fantastic order of operations, and over the course of 4 days, we basically, on a social media budget, working with Asher J., who is a National Geographic explorer, and an Airbnb host named Timothy, we did something that was utterly appropriate for all of the brands together. And we told 3 stories simultaneously. We told a companion documentary piece. We did 3 live shows from within Roswell, and we did cellular bonding, because Roswell is not saturated in the middle of New Mexico with fiber connections and high-speed
bonding
wireless.
is a really useful tool. I mean, a lot of our clients opt for bonding just even when we have a great internet infrastructure for that redundancy.
Just as a fallback.
Yeah.
And here's a dirty secret. The largest customers in Silicon Valley, one of the hardest places to get a good, clean, accessible Ethernet connection is inside of a 400 unrestricted is inside of a Fortune 500 company, because they're locked down. So weirdly, you may be in a situation where you're broadcasting inside of one of these high bandwidth organizations where you're still going cellular because it's free and open. But back to this Roswell Live place, it was ultimately a social media budget.
Right.
And it was National Geographic who has the highest standards, and Airbnb who has the highest standards, and Chiat Day wanted the best possible branded experience. And by delivering 2/3 of that experience live, we were able to return eyes for them immediately. And that was another multi-million view experience.
Yeah.
And it all went back to this idea of what would it be like for the average Airbnb customer to get guided by a local, which all of their Airbnb hosts are in these scenarios.
Sure.
And so live reinforced this kind of visceral experience of, well, I could go to Roswell and experience the crazy UFO festival, or what if I went with this personal touch, a friend?
Yeah, yeah.
And then National Geographic added in their Explorer to it, so we got a lot of science and culture. And at the end, we were able to deliver not just the live, which went live, but it became a source for the documentary. So this is also an example of everything feeding into everything else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things is like that gave a sense of the moment of the UFO festival, which is very colorful and eye-catching and attention grabbing. Which is basically the biggest thing that we're all striving for in production
Discovery,
in general.
right?
Right.
If your audience can discover something they didn't know about in a way that moves them, we won.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, what are some of the tools that you use in your studio and in the field? You mentioned bonding, how big that is. What are some of the other tools that you use to get the projects out?
Sure, I would first preface this by saying it's all part of a philosophy,
Right.
which is modular. If you have 30,000 to drop on the latest, greatest, all-in-one production solution, great. But for a lot of companies our size, there's another reason to go modular than just you can make really cost-efficient solutions.
Yeah.
You can swing out each piece as a new, better piece comes along, right?
Yeah, right.
So everything I'm about to tell you fits into that philosophy. So we have Blackmagic's first ATEM 4K switcher in the chain. That's the heart of our switching because it's a fantastic switcher.
It is, absolutely. Yeah.
But, now they've come out with their new television production studio 4K switcher, so we're looking at swapping that out.
Mm-hmm.
In the playback chain, we're an Adobe CC house, right?
Yeah.
So that Creative Cloud house, so we do a lot of things where we feed in things directly from Premiere or Photoshop.
Right out of Premiere.
Right, yeah.
Right out
That's
of
just
After
another
Effects.
source.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the streaming portion, there's no, and it's not just because Wow's is sponsoring this,
Right. Yeah.
but seriously, there is no better solution on the planet for streaming to Facebook than the Wowza Clearcaster box, and here's why. It's the only box that talks two-way. It's the only box that Facebook talks back to.
Yeah.
And we saw this happen for us in Mountain View, where we were getting real-time flex transmission on giving as much bandwidth as Facebook could take at any moment, as opposed to just shoving something down the line and it breaking. So
yeah, and when you're working, with a Facebook partner who can help manage the process,
or
and,
call a Facebook engineer.
right, call a Facebook engineer. I mean, Facebook is getting data from your encoder, unlike any other encoder that you're sending to
Absolutely.
it. And that was one of the things that they wanted to initiate when working with Wowza was, Facebook really wanted to be able to have some control over the encoding point,
Yes.
over the origin point, and then be able to see how it hits their API and what chunks may be lost in the process and really smooth it out for a good experience. But the biggest thing, all of that is great for us in technically from a production standpoint, but really the real value that I've seen is in dealing with the talent view and having a VOD start on time. It's the first time that I've seen
Yes.
that in live production of being able to have a frame accurate start.
And for those who are watching who have never done a live production, that probably doesn't feel like it means anything, but even for us last summer, because we were mobile, and this is before the Clearcaster box hit,
Clearcaster, yeah.
we were on a Video Pro, which is a great mobile solution, right on top of the camera.
Sure.
We did their ShareLink cellular bonding, great. But if you watch any of our broadcasts, we had 10 seconds of hosts smiling and looking to camera because it was a roll of the dice when Facebook would actually pick up the feed.
Yeah.
So now what our talent sees, whether it was Willa at QuickBooks or whether it's our weekly show, they see the classic 3, 2, 1 sweep. And when it pops to that first frame of live video, you are frame accurate live. And so
So cool.
for high-level talent, for new talent, the confidence of you're not broadcasting to the world until that happens is magic. Because I will say this, the bigger the client, the more refined they expect your live production to be.
Yes.
So even though we're modular and we're 2 and 3 and 4 person teams doing events, they want the confidence that they're going to be best foot forward. So that small detail of frame accurate start time goes a long way to that.
Yeah, it's really great. And then, they now have redundancy, which, for anyone in live production is ultimately how you should do everything. And, you can have multiple internet service providers running multiple Clearcasters and have like full redundancy with battery backups and everything to ensure that you can get a stream out. And
let's put that in context, by the way, that I keep going back to 5 years ago, it wouldn't be possible. Let me amend that. It would have been possible with $1 million satellite truck in the field.
Sure, of course.
So what the amazing thing for us today is we're sitting in a fully, no apologies, broadcast studio setup as a generation who grew up with social media.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just disruptive. That is just looking at things in the rearview mirror. Like it's moved beyond disruptive to history lesson for how it was used to be done. It's still being done today, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're the usual company client, no matter how big you are, then doing an ESPN event style setup will never be cost effective.
Sure, or fit the content, as you were saying earlier.
Content.
Right?
But to be able to roll into pretty much any event that's imaginable for mere mortals, to be able to roll in and cover a portion of that and say, hey, let's have a lean forward moment, audience. You couldn't make it to NAB today. Yeah. We're going to give you a privileged experience, because not even most people at NAB are going to have a deep dive.
That's right.
So why don't you experience NAB from the comfort of your office, your home, your time in the field, wherever you are, and we're going to give you something special that's still very much NAB. And there are 1,000 equivalent examples of that.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, it's been a really great time here with Wowza, and we really are big fans of the Clearcaster, and I'm glad it's working out well for you.
Absolutely.
I've really enjoyed our talk today. That's all the time we have on this segment, but coming up, we'll be right back at the top of the hour with another discussion on Wowza Studio Sessions. Stephen Calcote of Butcherbird Studios. Check them out. They're in Glendale. They work internationally, obviously. But thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, Rob. What a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. See you next time.